It was all about who do we know is going to show up and follow through on the project? Who do we feel confident in that they're going to do a good job, that they're not going to make my life a nightmare in dealing with them? When, you reach out for a quote and you get a professional, great communicative experience from the first second, you feel pretty good about what probably the rest of the experience is going to look like. They just kind of assume that that's what the second half of the experience is going to be like as well. That's 100% the case. I don't want to have to babysit you. I will just pay more money for the company that will just minimum disruptions to your life. That's what I'll pay for.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am here with Chris Moore. Chris is the founder of Elite Business Advisors, a consulting company based in the St. Louis area that helps painting contractors treat their business like a business. He started by running his own painting company, Elite Painting, for 4 years before launching Elite Business Advisors in 2018, running both simultaneously for 2 years before going full-time on the consulting side in 2020. He holds a Bachelor of Entrepreneurship from Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and is a regular PCA speaker and Sherwin-Williams Pro Plus training series presenter. His work focuses on bridging the gap between craftsmanship and business operations, helping contractors understand their finances, implement systems, and build marketing strategies to scale. He also hosts the Elite Business Advice podcast on PCA Overdrive. Chris, it's been a long time in the making, but I'm glad that we were able to make this happen, and thank you for coming on today.
Same, man. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed our chat at Expo, and yeah, a little bit better late than never. I know we've both been a little busy since then, so thanks for having me on here, man.
Yeah. So first thing that jumped out to me that I'm assuming is maybe one of the most rewarding and possibly challenging pieces of what you do, but critical for contractors, understanding their finances in business. Is that something that because obviously you got your bachelor's in entrepreneurship, so is that something that you're naturally passionate about, or you had a bunch of personal pain in your own business that led to the light and passion around it?
Yeah, so I think I was gifted with a numbers thinking brain anyways. So I can't say, thankfully, it wasn't really a problem. As much as honestly, as we got into this in 2018, we started seeing trends. We started seeing the trend of nobody knew their numbers, nobody knew their finances, and all they cared about was chasing the next shiny marketing object, and they had no idea if they were even making money, right? And so I think a lot of it's just kind of the passion behind it. And I think for a lot of business owners, I always joke that they go into business for two reasons, for time freedom and financial freedom. And what are the two things entrepreneurs don't usually have? Time freedom, financial freedom, right? So I think for me, it kind of became this little bit of a passionate pursuit. And as you mentioned, and I love that intro, by the way, I appreciate all that. I can tell you did some research. I haven't heard anybody bring up my college degree in a long time, so I appreciate the thoroughness. But I think for me, it was we help in all areas of business. We help them with marketing strategies, with sales processes, recruiting strategies, onboarding, training employees, operations. We help with that all. But none of it honestly matters if the finances are unknown, right? We can help them scale their business, but if the foundation is not good, it's just going to crumble that much harder down the road.
Yeah, I can't remember the author. It's a business author that says rule number one in business is, or I think there's only two rules in business. Rule number one is don't run out of money, and rule number two is see rule number one.
It's so true though, right? It's so true. So yeah, I think for us, it was, again, a little bit of it's just the way that my brain's wired. The other side of it, just seeing the huge need for it and the huge lack that existed. It's not just even in the painting industry, but I think it's especially noticeable in the trades.
Yeah, I'm curious, what are your two favorite numbers when you talk about knowing your numbers?
Yep.
If you sat down with a contractor, what are the ones that you're okay, tell me this, this, and this, and that gives you, 80% of the picture or whatever?
Yeah. So I would say, I may have to put a couple clarifiers on here, but I would say number one, their monthly net profit based on production. So not cash collected and how your profit and loss shows it, but your monthly net based on what you produce that month, your overhead, everything that goes into that. That to me will probably tell me about 80% of their business. The other one that I would love to say, we call it the North Star metric. That's an Elon Musk term, but it's what's your monthly revenue goal for production to be a profitable company. And I'm going to guess if I ask that question, 80% of contractors out there don't know the answer to it, right? So if you know the answer to it, great. Now the other half of the battle is having the strategy in place to execute on that, to sell enough work, to schedule enough work, to be able to have the team to execute it. So to me, it's like those two KPIs are going to tell me, one, a lot of details about their business and how they're currently operating, and two, is their mindset focused in the right area.
What is the like, I'm thinking with the monthly net profit as the production, that number you're talking about?
Yep.
It's crazy how many companies that we talk to, and I would say it's surprising how large you can get and still not know the answer to that.
Yes.
This is more like a fun question first, but what's the largest size in revenue of a company that you've seen that didn't know the answer to those questions?
2 point.
Because I have a follow-up after you say,
Yeah.
what's the revenue?
2.3 million.
Because I was going to say it's somewhere around that mark.
Yeah.
It's big enough that maybe they had some intuition to make it work before.
Yep.
But around that $2 million mark is where a lot of things are either like, I mean, if you don't know your numbers at that point, you could be humming along and then all of a sudden like your payroll hits and you're just like wiped out because you had no planning.
Yes, that's what we see. I mean, more times than not, I think Slavic uses the term cowboy, but like you can cowboy it to like 1 to 1.5 million is usually kind of the upper threshold we see, but occasionally you'll get the outlier of, a few people in the 2 million plus range that, again, still don't know the answer to that.
So then I'm thinking...
You're right? There was the intuition. I guess I should say that because I don't want to discredit anybody that's done that. Like, they had good intuition. They just didn't understand the technical thinking. I wouldn't call it luck, but they had a little luck on their side that nothing ever went drastically wrong, but they had good intuition to get them there. I like that term.
And then as far as like, okay, I don't know the answer to that.
Yep.
So what are the, I'm sure, I know there's like obviously big processes, and I've seen from clients that we share the spreadsheets that you use to help focus people on this. But what's like the stepping stones? Is there like a 5-step process or like some 6 key principles or something that you try to implement when you're working with somebody?
Yeah, so what I would say, I'll even boil it down into 2 because I like simple things, Chris. Step 1 is job cost out all your projects and organize it by month produced, right? Step 2 to that is then assess what was your overhead spent that month on everything to operate your business, your marketing cost, your softwares, your insurance, your office rent, your office person, your project manager. How much money did you take out of the business as an owner, right? In terms of salary and distributions. And then that'll tell you what that monthly net is. So I like that because, again, job costing is something I think everybody should do always, no matter what, for the rest of forever. It's not we did that once and everything looked great. Things can change, right? You hire a project manager and all of a sudden maybe you didn't train them well and your GP drops 10%. Just because what you were doing last year worked well doesn't mean what you're doing this year worked, right? And so, if you're job costing, again, it's just a matter of organizing it in a way that you can kind of assess those numbers. But I love the awareness that bottom section brings on our spreadsheet, that part 2, because it really helps you understand, like, holy cow, it takes $35,000 a month just to cover our bills, right? Between our salaries, between our overhead, between whatever it is for your business. Obviously, everyone's going to be different. It gives you a new perspective on the financials of your business when you add up all those rows together and you see how much it actually takes you that you need to make on your projects just to be profitable every month. And that will help you aid in decisions moving forward.
I love that. I'm sure that this is, it's crazy to me actually, the spread from a gross margin or gross profit perspective, how variable businesses are. Seems like obviously 50% is an average, but I've seen businesses that have 60%, 65% gross profit on projects.
Yep.
What do you feel like is a healthy spot, and or maybe it's how do you dictate or coach or tell someone how, like, what questions do I need to answer to be able to come up with my goal gross profit on projects?
Yep. So I'll share kind of some industry benchmarks, and I'm going to focus this on the residential painting side of things. The industry benchmark is 45% gross profit. We want our clients to overshoot and shoot for 50%. GP is kind of our floor benchmark. We have some, as you said, that are at 55 and 60%. And I'll share kind of how you can get there in a second. But that's kind of a floor, right? For a lot of repaints, even commercial repaints, you're still in that same ballpark. When you start getting into other verticals, such as like track new construction homes, the margins are way different there, right? And so I don't want to speak too far outside of that, because again, it gets very specific into each kind of little niche and vertical that you find yourself in. But that's kind of a great benchmark to look at. You'll hear the 45%. I like shooting for 50. Usually that's 35% labor, 15% materials is kind of the math and how we get there, some version of that. The ones that are wanting to start shooting for that 55 to 60%, where the gap comes is it's not that they're paying their people less. It's not that they decided to start using, A100 at Sherwin-Williams instead of Duration, and that's how they're cutting their margins. It's they've got their sales process and their value proposition and their branding dialed in to be able to charge a premium for their projects, right? So all their fixed cost of sub pay, material stays the same, but they're now charging $90 an hour instead of $75 or $80 an hour, right? And so that's where the companies that are shooting for that 55, 60% GP typically are charging a higher premium in their market, and they're able to do that because they've got the legwork and the systems put in place to sell jobs at those margins.
To me, is it as simple as the thing that's valuable and that clients are willing to pay more for is just certainty and trust?
Yes.
Like, I don't know if there's a different word you would use or words than those.
Confidence. I mean, you trust. I use trust and confidence. Obviously they need to know, like, and trust you. But I think that's what it is. Even if you ask, I did this recently, even if you ask AI, what are homeowners looking for when making a decision to choose a painting company? Even AI was spitting out information that, like, homeowners are searching for this. Homeowners are looking for this, right? And nothing about it, Chris, was quality of cut lines, how great how smooth the surface preparation was. Did they caulk all the gaps? Didn't even show up. It was all about who do we know is going to show up and follow through on the project? Who is going to, who do we feel confident in that they're going to do a good job, that they're not going to make my life a nightmare in dealing with them? And that's where I go back to sales process for that value proposition, because when, you reach out for a quote and you get a professional, great communicative experience from the first second of your interaction with that company, all the way through the sales process, right? Estimators showing up, any follow-ups needed, anything that they send to you in the meantime during that process, like you feel pretty good about what probably the rest of the experience is going to look like based on what the first half of it is, right? And we all know that can be two different sides of the coin, but the odds are in your favor that if you're following through, you're showing up, you're doing the right things, you're building that trust and confidence from the first second. They just kind of assume that that's what the second half of the experience is going to be like as well.
I just asked while you were saying that, I asked Claude, what are homeowners looking for when they're trying to select a painting company? And so it gave me this huge list, and I said, okay, just boil it down to two things for me.
Yeah.
And it said trust and transparency. Everything else is a derivative of those two: reviews, insurance, credentials, referrals. That's how homeowners verify trust. Detailed estimates, clear timelines, prep work, explanation. That's how they experience transparency. But yeah, I think when you think about that from just in my own experience of working with contractors of any kind, it's just like the people that, especially I think as you move up in the economic ladder, you just have so many things that you would rather be doing with your time than checking on and verifying. And so it's like, it's worth paying potentially double the lowest bid,
Right.
that you got, just because it's like they've got great reviews. I know that it's like they're just going to take care of this problem, so I never have to think about it again.
Yep.
And all I have to do is tell them my colors, and it's going to be done right and well, and it's going to last, and like that's what people want.
That's 100% the case. And I think I call it the babysitting factor, right? And I feel the same thing when we've hired contractors at our house. Like, I don't want to have to babysit you. Like, and if I know I'm getting a great deal on something, I might be willing to deal with that. But to your point, like 2 kids later, growing business, like I don't want to deal with it, right? Like I will just pay more money for the company that will just, hey, great, we're going to be there next Thursday. We're going to show up. We're going to do it. We'll be in and out in 2 days, minimum disruptions to your life. That's what I'll pay for. Yeah, it's clean when they leave. So again, I think as you're thinking about sales process, keep in mind what people care about. And I think, not everybody's going to fall in that category, right? I tell people when they're talking to homeowners, there's three reasons homeowners are going to pick you or not. It's, is your price in their budget? Does your schedule or does their needs meet your schedule availability? And the third one is, do they know, like, and trust you? Right. And what we can't do about the first two, or we can't do anything about the first two. We can only control that third one, right? Because we don't know what their budget is, what their assumptions are about price. Our price is going to be our price. If it fits, it does. And the schedule is going to be the schedule. If they need it done tomorrow and we're booked out for 6 weeks tight, sorry, it doesn't matter, right? So we can only control that third variable. And I think people focus too much on those first two things, trying to accommodate it when it's going to be what it's going to be one way or the other.
I'm curious on the close rate for sales.
Yeah.
This is an interesting thing that everyone obviously wants to get we need a higher close rate.
Yeah.
At what point does it shift from you're really good at sales to you need to raise your prices?
Usually somewhere around the 60% or more mark, in my opinion. A lot of it obviously is going to vary based on, marketing channels that are being used, right? We know that typically Facebook historically is going to have Facebook ads, I should say, it's going to have a little bit of a lower closing rate, right? So if 80% of your estimates are coming from Facebook, we need to keep that in mind. And I just use that as an example. But for me, the sweet spot, 40 to 50%. Again, we have some clients that are down at 30, 33%. But Chris, they're booking out 8 to 12 weeks. They're charging that premium price. They're hitting a 60% GP, and they have enough of a demand coming in that their business is growing 10, 20% year over year. And they can afford to lose 2/3 of their estimates. Right? So every business is going to be different based on kind of where you're at in that stage and what your lead flow is. And so again, understand there is case by case situation, right? There might be a situation where we need it to be at 65% because we do not have enough leads coming in and we need every job we can get. Right.
You'd rather take the lower margin if necessary, as long as it helps you hit the revenue goal for the month.
Exactly. Right. If you're keeping your backlog out, 4 to 6 or more weeks in most markets works. I know some markets, it's like if you can't get there in 2 to 3 weeks, you lose people. So I understand that every market's a little bit different. But for the most part, if you're keeping your backlog out there and your gross profit is 55 to 60% like it is, I don't mind the only having a 33% close rate.
Is there a number for overhead in a business that's like because I know also it can, depending if you're in a growth stage or not,
Yep.
and are you overhiring your back office or your finance or marketing team to prepare for growth? Or are you trying to, bootstrap it and run yourself into the ground before you hire help?
Yeah.
But what is for someone that's not trying to double their business every year, they're just 10, 15% growth. What do you see as a healthy range for overhead as a percent of revenue?
So I think that's a number that shifts at every stage, regardless of what your growth plans are and your aggressiveness with it. I think the best kind of range I could give would be probably 10 to 15%, not counting any owner salary as part of that overhead, if that makes sense. So just your, kind of main monthly overhead plus, any office staff, anything like that. 10 to 20% or sorry, 10 to 15% before owners, I think would be a pretty good kind of range to think about. Again, rent, marketing, insurance, vehicle payments. Yep, I would consider overhead staff in the office in there. And again, if you've got, typically when you're pushing the $1 million mark, you're hiring, typically at least have an office person in place by then, and or maybe starting to hire like a project manager or an estimator, so at that point I would expect that overhead to be closer to 15% if they're just hitting that million mark, but that overhead setting them up to get to 1.5, right, to where by then it might only be 10%. So that's where it's hard to even like that's the best kind of guess I can, or not guess, but educated thought I can give on that, just because again, there's so many variations, and especially if you have two owners and one of the owners is in one seat in the org chart and the other one's in the other chart, that'll start to change that too.
What are other metrics that are like, I don't know, your favorite or that you feel like are the highest leverage to focus on?
Yeah, so we already mentioned the monthly net and we call it the break-even number, your North Star metric. The other ones that I would say, we've already talked about closing rate, I think super important to know. Marketing ROI. That's a huge one for us. I know you've seen our marketing stats tracker we have with a couple of the mutual clients. For me, as soon as you really are starting to put money into any type of marketing, you need to have a really good metric on, what is our ROI on those channels? How much money are we making from what we're spending on Google, on Facebook, on Angie, on whatever the platforms are that you're spending money? We need to know that. We need to be able to see the closing rates, right, differently. That's where I can confidently sit here and say, being able to benchmark across a lot of data, that Facebook is a little bit of a lower closing rate, than other platforms, and that's okay. It's part of the strategy, right? So I think marketing ROI and tying in with that, your cost per lead, cost per estimate, cost per job sold, helps make some other decisions in your business too. So that's a big one. The other one, I just had a fifth one in there: marketing, sales, finances. It kind of ties in with the North Star metric. We actually even take that and break it down into weekly. I think for me, especially as your business grows, seeing, okay, we need to produce $100,000 this month to be a profitable business, right? That's almost too big of a timeline for people, because it's really easy to get to the 13th of the month and be way off track. And so we actually recommend them to even take that number and just break it down into the 4 weeks during the month and say, no, we need to hit 25,000 each week. And so again, it's kind of a metric to look at. Are we on track? Are we off track? After week one, if you're $4,000 behind, you're on target, or you're actually ahead of target.
Do you have any metrics for, or again, I think looking at everything as a percent of revenue is so helpful, because it's very tempting to, this is like a pet peeve of mine, credit card transaction fees, right?
Yes.
As you're growing, it's really tempting when you're doing $3 million and you're looking at this 3% fee. You're like, oh my gosh, we're spending, what is that? Is that
90,000?
90,000? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. We're spending $90,000. Like, oh my gosh, that's like, I could do so much with that money. And then, so you start looking for ways, maybe we could charge the customer the credit card fee.
Right.
Or there's just this, I feel like there's this dance of like, they see the number and then they will be like, let's have the customers pay it. But then customers push back because they don't want to pay it. So they're like, well, we just raise our prices and wrap it into it.
Yeah.
And then what do you know? Customers are paying 3% more and they don't care. And then you're looking at that number again and you're like, man, we need to collect more checks or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just a psychological game, because you don't see, like Amazon isn't like, man, if we could cut out credit card transactions, we could get $85 billion this month back or whatever. It's just like, it's just it's like a electricity bill almost is how I think about it.
Yes.
And it's just like, it is what it is, move faster. And I don't know where you land on, like, obviously, if you can get a check, great.
Yeah.
But I would say I've seen some large companies, $10, $12 million, like residential companies, and it's like I don't know if it doesn't cost more to take a check.
No.
They are trying to get every single person to pay by credit card that they can,
Yep.
just because the speed of getting the cash. You don't have guys handling paper checks in the field and have to go back to the office. And it's just like, make it easy. It's what customers want. Don't charge them the fee. Just like make it simple.
Yep.
Where do you land on that? Or how do you coach? Because again, I can see both sides, but I would say, and I've fallen into the trap myself as a business owner of like,
right.
Man, it'd be nice to not lose that fee.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're a transaction or like a service business like that, there is a point of just like move faster and forget about it.
Yep. So I love the question, man. It's something that comes up every year, especially when we start going through and doing our like next year planning and budget. It happens every single year. And so honestly, our stance with it is raise your prices, include it, and just don't look back. Don't think about it. It, like you said, it's just part of the cost of doing business. I think when you can get checks, I think that's good. And that's what we honestly coach to is it like, hey, if there's a chance where the homeowner can just write you a check at the end of the day before you guys leave, like that's best case scenario, right? Because like now you've kind of raised your prices to include it because that's just part of your pricing model, right? But we're saving the fees on it. I think where people go wrong with that is one, what we find is most contractors really suck at having a job closeout SOP. And it's kind of just like, okay, we're done. Awesome. Maybe there's a walkthrough, right? And then like, oh yeah, we'll send over your invoice in 24 to 72 hours. And it's like, no, like when we had our business, and I just taught this on one of our masterminds last month with our clients, like 24 hours before we knew we were done, we were having the conversation with them. Hey, are you going to be home tomorrow around 3:00? Because we're going to be wrapped up and we want to do a walkthrough and we'll have the final invoice already sent over. We'll settle up before we leave. Like, are you going to be home tomorrow? Right. And if yes, great. We've set that expectation, and then an hour before we're done, this is what happens, right? And if they say no, great, then we're going to go to work problem solving. Can we do a walkthrough now? And can you leave a check for us tomorrow? Can we do a walkthrough? Can you leave a check minus $1,000 if you push back and want to look at it, right? Like we start problem solving that 24 hours before we're done. And so when you have a good process in place and you have the right team members that can follow an SOP to save their life, the check thing isn't a big deal. I do agree with you when you get to be a $12 million company and you got, 100 people in the field, that's harder to do. There's a lot more moving pieces. And at some point, having the credit card fees and just that process is easier. I think the thing I would say on that is if homeowner can't give you a check, isn't home, and they're like, oh, I'll just drop it in the mail. Like, hey, we'll just send over the invoice and you can pay online, right? That's where the other side of things I think people go wrong is they let too many homeowners just mail checks that then take 7 to 21 days thanks to the lovely post office here.
I put it in the mail. It's on my counter. It's almost in the mailbox.
Yeah, it's kind of there, but now I got to go find stamps and exactly, right? So I think that's where people go wrong with. So I think the check collection idea is great if you have the right SOPs and the right guardrails in place to not let it get out of control. But that's kind of just what we advise. Make it part of your pricing model, collect checks when you can if your process is great. If not, it's not a money saving expense. It's literally, like you said, it's your electricity bill. You just kind of need it to be able to operate your business.
Yeah. And I think that humans are really good at underestimating how long things take, and just when I agree with you, I think it's great that closeout SOP and prepping the homeowner. I 100% agree. If you don't have that, or even if let's say you do have that, if you start dividing out the time of each person in the business that is now on the hook or part of the follow-up process to get paid, and how many hours get spent to try and track down extra money, it's that actually adds up to on the $10,000 invoice, and you had to pay $300 for transaction fee.
Yeah.
Do some rough math there of $40 an hour of someone's time, roughly,
right,
with all the overhead and all the other stuff in there. It's it doesn't take a ton of effort. And then I also feel people oh, it only takes me 5 minutes to make the phone call.
Yeah.
But there's that disruption of tasks. And when I was doing something else and now I got to go swap into this mode and get up to speed on who had which conversation. It's like everything always takes longer than you think.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity cost in everything.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other overhead. What did I write down here? Where do you feel like for you personally, what is your sweet spot of where you just crush it with painting companies? Taking them from X to Y. And that doesn't necessarily only need to be a revenue thing. I'm sure that's a part of it.
Yeah.
But what's like the journey that you see yourself taking entrepreneurs on, and how do they transform in working with you?
Obviously, we've got stuff set up to work at all stages of business. And we have a few clients right now that are literally solo, just hiring their first employee, right? And we have kind of a package together for them. But I think for us, like the people that have got a little bit of a foundation in place, typically have, we'll just call it 4 to 6 painters, so somewhere in that 500 to 700K of revenue. They figured out how to get past the first couple of hires. Those that want to then turn into the like $1.5 million businesses that have, so I say when you're maybe the first time you're not needed in your own business, right? They have a project manager, they have an estimator, they have an office admin, they can keep things moving, right? That's probably the first time you could, in theory, go on vacation for 2 weeks and your business continues to run without you. Those are the entrepreneurs we love to work with, right? They need the systems in place. They need to develop themselves as leaders. They need to understand what it takes to hire a leadership team. And that's a whole ball game. Like I think, honestly, the industry doesn't talk about that enough, in my opinion, of like going from being a doer to being a coach and a leader and a manager is a whole nother world, right? It's one thing to manage projects yourself or to estimate projects yourself. Now you're a sales coach. Now you're a project manager coach, right? Now you're an office admin coach. Like you're coaching all of these people to do these things. And so that's a pretty common thing that we work with a lot of our clients through. Again, we've got clients that are, $3, $4, $5 million in revenue each year. We've got some that are 3, 4, 500,000 in revenue each year, and everything in between there. But the ones that again are coachable and hungry and they're willing to put the work into it, those are our favorite ones, regardless of where they're at in the journey.
What are the behavioral, or I'm just thinking about, this is an insight into your business of what are you looking for to catch when the entrepreneur that you're coaching is falling off track? So it's like you teach them to look for leading indicators or lagging indicators in their business.
Yeah.
What are the leading indicators for you of like, I might need to have a difficult conversation with this client because I care about them and I want to help them achieve what they are supposedly paying me for.
Right.
But I'm noticing that we're drifting.
So, typically number one is they're not updating their spreadsheets, keeping up with that. Or I would say in general, they're just not doing anything that we're talking about in our meetings, right? I'm pretty clear in our expectations whenever we have calls with new clients that like, hey, we're here to coach. We're here to advise you. Like, we will give you as much of the things as you need to do this. You have to go do it, right? And we can talk about it. I can give you every strategy under the sun to go from here to there and how you need to do it specific to you. But if you won't go put the time into it between our calls, we're going to get 3 months into it and this is going to be a waste, right? And so I think that's to me just a pretty obvious one. We always leave each of our meetings with like kind of action items. Some people call it homework. I go action items on that. And it's like if they're 0 for 4, 0 for 5 week after week after week, we're going to have a conversation of like, hey, like, do you want this? Is timing not right? Like, what do we need to do differently, and see that. So I think for us, it's just simply that. If they're not nailing their action items, they stop updating the spreadsheets, or they never start updating the spreadsheets, no matter how much we tell them to, we need them to, so that we can understand their numbers. That to us is a pretty quick indicator that, maybe it's timing, maybe it's not them as a person, but it's pretty obvious at that point we need to have a harder conversation.
This is my own experience. The mental side or limiting beliefs, mindset, Do you guys coach around that as well?
I mean, we're glorified unlicensed therapists, Chris. Some marriage therapists in some situations too. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. And I think sometimes that's what's really hard for us. I know, like with all of our advisors, that's a conversation that ends up coming up usually at some point in their first 3 to 6 months with us as an advisor, is they get really emotionally attached to somebody because they want it for them more than the client wants it for them. And that's a hard thing for us to walk. It's not that we get, emotionally detached and we don't care about our clients, because there's a lot of clients I'd fly out tomorrow and be there with them if something absolutely crazy happened, right? But at the end of the day, we find ourselves wanting it for them more than they do because we see the potential in them. We see that they've got what it takes to succeed. We see that they, have capabilities, but at the end of the day, they can't get out of their own way. Right. And so we have to, sometimes we have to get deep in trying to help them, figure out how to get through it, how to get past it, how to not have that limiting belief, and, be open to changing actually, or that they can do it. Right. I've had a lot of people say, like I joked earlier when you mentioned about the college degree, like had a lot of people be like, well, of course you can do it. You went to college. And I was like, did you realize that degree really is nothing more than like a receipt up on a wall? I don't even know where it's at. I think it's still at my parents' house. Like, I'm like, everything I learned about running a painting company, I didn't learn at SIUE. No matter how great of a school it was, I learned it because I went out and did it. And I surrounded myself with people that were doing it successfully. And I listened to podcasts like this to learn how to do it. It wasn't because I got a degree from a school.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that there's sometimes it's like everything comes back to, I can't remember where I heard this, but it's like every adult has like this 6th grader or 12-year-old child stuck inside themselves. And it's like a lot of times the problems or the self-sabotaging that happens is because they actually haven't talked about some thing that happened to them in, 6th grade or middle school or whatever. And it's like, I've had different business coaches. Some of them are like aware of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've had other ones that are like, they are like laser focused and like always kind of the antenna is always out. Like, why, like what's going on?
Yeah.
Tell me or when's the last time you remember, or when was the first time that you remember this feeling? And it's like, oh man, that's, it's crazy.
No, I think it's something we have to be aware of. I think a lot of our team and its conversations we have, a lot of us understand the human psychology behind it, even if we aren't, therapists for lack of a better word. But I think there's a lot of value in that because there's so many things I think we go through and we deal with that unless you're intentional, like I always use the term like peeling back the layers of an onion to figure out like why I react this way about something, right? Like I love to like self-diagnose and try to get to the root of why this triggers me, why this bothers me, why I love this, right? And if you're not wired that way, it's hard to kind of have that open-minded thinking to it. So I think it's something we have to be mindful of, even if we're not the one trying to get to the bottom of it with them. I guess that's always a big thing, is knowing like when it's just a simple limiting belief conversation that we need to make them aware of, and when it's like you need to probably go talk to somebody and unpack that, right? And obviously, having that delicate conversation, I think that's been a big thing that we've always kind of prided ourselves on with anything, even, legal advice, right? It's like, hey, we can throw some ideas out there, but like at the end of the day, like there's a point in time where it's like, you need to go talk to an attorney about this, right? Or you need to go talk to somebody that specializes in, XYZ thing. We can get you 80% there. I think it's the same thing with this mindset and these beliefs of, we can have good conversations. We can maybe help them work through some stuff, but there's always a point where we need to hand it off to somebody that's, more professionally equipped to help people work through something.
Do you have this is another random thought that came to my mind, a rough ballpark of software and technology if you wrapped up everything, especially with AI now? If you look at all the expenses in a painting business, what's the approximate range, again, as a percent of revenue that you see someone spending on all the software and technology in their business?
I think it's probably honestly around like 1%, and some of that can be just rounding with decimals too. I think there's because you got to think about it, right? With a lot of softwares, as you continue to grow, you need more users on that, right? And so that can be the downside if you're the business owner in those shoes of, more users is more cost. And so I think if you kind of wrap all that together, thinking through some of the budgets we have with people, off the top of my head, I would say 1% is a pretty good
estimate,
pretty good number that comes out to. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was looking at, or I had done research on this, and it doesn't have again, I don't know how you study this deeply,
Yeah.
but it was saying that small businesses broadly tend to spend 3 to 6% of revenue on technology, and painting contractors are typically underspending relative to other industries.
Yep.
But that would say it's saying that it's guessing that it's somewhere in the 2 to 3% range, depending upon how aggressively someone's trying to. I guess my biggest feeling is it seems like with AI that percentage will go up.
Yep.
And the goal would be that your overhead comes down at maybe double the rate that your AI spend, so to speak, is going up.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Like if I'm going to spend on technology, I'd want it to positively impact a different part of my business,
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. I think that's a good thing. I mean, I just kind of even running through some different numbers here. I think on a larger company, 1% solid. I think if you're, a 500 to a million, 500K to a million, 1% I think is still pretty reasonable, but I could see that creeping up to 1.5 to 2%. Again, especially with AI, I mean, there's so much going on in that world that I know you're aware of, just with Manus and Claude Cowork and so many different things that exist out there that, I mean, truly, yeah, that your costs may go up, but in theory, then your overhead salaries may decrease, or again, it'll allow you to do more with the people you have, right? There's so many ways that we can use that. So I do think that can creep up, but I think it's a good ROI, if that makes sense.
Any other closing thoughts before I head to my wrap up questions?
I'm excited to hear those. No, man, I don't think so. I think this has been fun to dissect through this, and I think just understanding, there's so much out there with KPIs, and, there are ways people can look at this, and, all these different metrics that I hear and see throughout this industry when we go to events like Expo and other things. I think just my advice for people would be just cut through the noise and focus on the key 3, 4, 5 that we've shared on here today, right? Talking about net profit, talking about understanding your sales closing rate, your marketing return, don't get caught up in all these crazy ratios and things that it's just going to be distraction, right? I think our brains can only handle so much. Focus on the core 3, 4, 5 that we discussed here today. That's going to move your needle the furthest and give you the best picture of your business, and just kind of tune out the rest.
Awesome. 3 book recommendations.
So first one, this is my all-time favorite, Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. I think it's a great overall synopsis of entrepreneurship in each area of business. Another one from my mentor, Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. If you need to think in terms of systems, playbooks, and frameworks, that's a great book for you to get your time back, especially as you're scaling with an office person. And then one of my all-time favorite classics, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. I think that's a tried and true classic that'll be around for the next century.
Are you in Dan Martell's coaching?
Yep. The elite coaching. Yep.
Yeah. How long have you been in that?
Almost 15 months now. It's been awesome.
Yeah. I did his diet and his health one.
Yeah. Yep.
Always, I mean, I loved it. I love Dan. I met him and love his books.
Yep.
But I've always been man, maybe I should. I'm in another coaching group are you familiar with Daniel Priestley?
I know the name. Yeah.
He wrote the book, Key Person of Influence.
Yep.
Or Oversubscribed is another one. Anyway, so I'm in Daniel's coaching group.
Okay.
And that's been good. But yeah, I love Dan Martell.
Dan's has been
solid example and role model.
Yeah, so I'm actually hopping on that as soon as we're done here. So,
movie suggestion or show suggestion?
One of my favorites over the last decade has been Suits. If you haven't heard of it, it's on Netflix right now. It came out probably almost a decade ago now, but it's a good one. It's got a good blend of some comedy.
I can imagine or see the thumbnail, but I've never seen it. Is it still like
Okay.
having episodes come out or seasons, or is it
I think it's finally done. I think it finally wrapped up a year or two ago.
interesting? I'll have to add that to the list.
It's one of my favorites.
And if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's your preferred method they reach out?
You can shoot me an email. It's chris@elitebusinessadvisors.com. You can also go to our website, elitebusinessadvisors.com, if you want to schedule a free analysis meeting on there with us. We'd love to have a conversation on anything there, again, or just generic questions. So either way, email or website. You can find me on Instagram, or any of our socials, our business ones at Elite Business Advisors on all the TikTok and Instagram and Facebook platforms.
Awesome. Well, Chris, it was a pleasure. Thank you. And I know we'll be seeing each other around, but thank you for coming on today.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Chat with you.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.